Breakfast.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Live from the New Scientist Labs,
Janine Young.
newscientist.com.
Joining us in Melbourne City, a grey old autumn's day in Melbourne City. Janine Young's with us. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning to you.
And you're sounding okay, having spent the last 6 days being kept company by a head cold, but you're doing all right this morning.
The head cold from hell, yes. If I'm still a bit crackly and a bit, nasally, I apologise. That's not my best radio voice this morning, but I'm doing the best I can.
It's all good. So I'll spring this one onto you. If I say mouse sperm, what do you say?
Bring it on. That's what I say.
Crikey.
Unlike most people, it doesn't tend to freak me out.
Yeah.
I had a friend, actually, just as an aside, whose wife used to work in an IVF clinic, and she dealt with not mouse sperm, but the male human variety, so she had an interesting job.
Oh.
Anything I could tell her was really boring in comparison. Anyway, moving on. Mouse sperm is one of those things that most people kind of go, okay, yeah, big deal.
Yeah.
But researchers in Japan have actually been able to make a big deal out of this. For the first time, they've been able to grow sperm, mouse sperm, that's a really important thing here, it's not human yet, outside the body. And this has been something that people have been trying to do for quite some time, because it has implications for being able to help people with infertility and the like. So there's a lot of interest in how sperm are produced, whether or not they turn out to be viable, what sort of conditions they need to live in. So for the first time, these researchers have been able to do this. How, I hear you ask?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, naturally. It's very important to know these things. What they did was took some undeveloped cells out of the testes, so the bits of boy mice. They were only just born. They were newborn mice. They hadn't yet started producing sperm. So these are kind of undeveloped, if you like. They were able to put them into agarose, which is a growth medium, if you like. It's a bit like jelly in many respects, but they had a whole bunch of hormones and growth factors eventually, and apparently there was much trial and error in being able to get this right. They were able to produce a concoction of these hormones and growth factors that meant that they started producing real, live, feasible, viable sperm.
Extraordinary.
And they knew this. They knew this because the mice had been bred to only have a fluorescent protein on mature sperm. So that meant that when they were viable, when they were mature, when they were functioning, if you stick them under a particular type of microscope, or you actually look at them in a particular way, you can actually see them and they start glowing. We've got a marvellous picture on page 18, so you can go and have a look at that when the magazine's out on Saturday. But this is actually, it sounds a bit trivial, but it's actually a really amazing thing, because this is the first time it's been done. What was even better was that they could actually take these cells and put them with a mouse egg. They produced viable embryos. When those embryos were implanted, they produced viable and healthy offspring. Those offspring were then able to reproduce and have pups of their own. So it seems that this is fully functioning, viable, go out there and get them sperm, which is really what you want. It's actually kind of important that you have this sort of thing. You don't want these weak-willed, broken creatures. So it seems that they actually have a technique now for being able to produce sperm that, as I said, later on, if they can work out whether or not this is possible in humans, it might have some serious and potentially very positive implications for male infertility.
What do you think? I mean, sperm between the various animals on Earth wouldn't be so enormously different. You think it would only be a trivial matter to then do this for humans?
Be careful what you say, my friend. When you say something is trivial, it invariably means it's going to be incredibly difficult. No one wants to tinker with male sperm and producing babies and the like until they know they've perfected it in animal models. Because as soon as you start messing with reproduction, it starts getting very ethically fraught. And rightly so. It's still, I think, ethically fraught when you're dealing with animals. You've got to be very careful. Yes, you're right. There are similarities between human and mouse sperm in particular. That's part of the reason they work on mouse models, because they are similar enough to humans that we can actually start drawing parallels. No, I don't think they're there yet. What they're looking at doing is trying to work out where in the developmental chain, genetically speaking, things have gone wrong. So once they know how the process works, they're thinking that they might be able to work out where the little chinks are in correcting them. So that's a lot further down the line than they're working at the moment. But it's very possible if you can take, a couple of sperm from a man who's having some difficulties, then you might be able to increase their numbers. But they're not there yet.
And turn it into glowing super sperm.
Yes, I suppose that's an option as well. But certainly to give a chance to people who are having trouble with conception, that it does actually give them a chance in future. That it could make life a bit less complicated than it currently is.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, it was.
I'm trying to keep a straight face through this.
No, and good. You've done very, very well. I've just been very silly. That's all. We'd had World Water Day earlier on this week, so it's a good time to talk about this story about the wastage of water and something that they call virtual water waste.
Virtual water is the water that's incorporated into the food and products that we eat and use. There is a staggering amount of virtual water that goes into food in particular. And researchers from, make sure I've got this right, WWF and the Waste and Resources Action Program in the UK have been looking at virtual water wastage in the British population. And they've found that even though people turn off their taps and they try to have short showers and the like, with the amount of food that they're throwing away, each person is wasting 243 litres a day. I'm just going to pause on that for a second. That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
We have I think it's gone now. We had a campaign in Melbourne the last year or two called Target 155. It was all about each person only using 155 litres of water a day, and that's with household usage, so showering and the like. So we'll compare 155 litres, which is still pretty generous when you think about it, to 243 litres per person per day being wasted.
Because when you're using water, you tend to only think of what you, when you're brushing your teeth, when you flush the toilet, have a shower, wash the dishes, that kind of thing. That's what we normally only think of. But there's a lot more water that we use that we don't actually see.
Absolutely. Think about really water-based fruit and vegetables. Tomatoes, for example, they need quite a lot of water. Carrots, as I'm finding out in my backyard at the moment, require a substantial amount of water. It's all the stuff that goes in behind that we don't tend to think about. So certainly they worked out that about 6% of the water, the virtual water that goes into producing food, is being wasted. That's a lot. So we think about a culture in, say, the United States, where they tend to have much larger portion sizes. They have all-you-can-eat buffets, and you can imagine the amount of wastage that goes into that. And they certainly believe that the virtual water wastage in the US is going to be a lot higher than it is in the UK. Now, I know that Australia is certainly not blameless in this, and neither would New Zealand be, although you have a smaller population, so you'd like to think that your stats will be a little bit better.
Though we have a huge dairy industry, and there's a lot of water going into that, yeah.
And that's the thing, people don't think about the water that goes into dairy, and that is particularly water dependent and water thirsty, if you like. I mean, you and I talked about some food wastage last year, and the staggering amount of waste that people are perpetrating, I suppose is a good word. The amount of waste that happens each year is just staggering. So it's all about planning. It's all about, making sure that you actually buy what you need. You don't buy more than you think you need. I went to a large warehouse supermarket on Friday night, and the portion sizes were unbelievably big. And I knew that we would never get through it simply because we just don't eat that much, and it would be wasted if I did. And I thought, okay, well, this is not going to work for us. Many people will just look at that. They'll look at the good prices that you get for that bulk buying and go, yeah, I'll have some of that. And I can only imagine how much of it gets wasted.
Very good point. So bear in mind your virtual water waste. Thanks very much, Janine.
See you next week.
Find those stories in the New Scientist magazine, which comes out next week, I think it is, next week, and also online as well, newscientist.com.